Part 1. Series Intro. Most people believe the world ends loudly, with explosions, with sirens, with someone telling you it's happening. They're wrong. The world ends quietly. It ends when grocery shelves don't get restocked, when the lights stay on, but the rules stop working, when you're told to stay where you are, and no one comes back for you. It ends when hunger teaches people who they really are. This is not a story about heroes. It's a story about preparation, about a brother and a sister on an established path for their higher education when society collapses. About lessons their father taught them that felt unnecessary until they weren't. About moving at night, staying invisible, and learning who to trust when trust becomes dangerous. In the world that follows the collapse, power splits in two: those who rule through the strength of numbers, and the other types who survive with skills and knowledge. Both will make it, one through force, and the other through cunning. This is the story of the quiet ones, the ones who don't announce themselves, the ones who build gates instead of breaking them. Because when everything falls apart, good people don't disappear. They adapt, and they find their way home.
Normal days, thin cracks. Mara Hensley used to joke that her brother had been born with a compass buried somewhere in his chest. Eli would stop in the middle of a busy sidewalk, glance once at the sun or even the moon, and start walking like he could feel north tugging on his ribs. It annoyed their friends. It impressed strangers. It made Mara feel calm in the way she only ever felt around her family. They were away at college together, which had been their mother's idea and their father's quiet compromise. Mara was a junior. Eli was a freshman, still new enough to campus that the buildings felt like they moved at night. Their university sat on the edge of a mid-sized city, all brick paths and tall trees and coffee shops that smelled like cinnamon and ambition. They were doing well. Mara's professors liked the way she spoke up without trying to take over. She studied environmental engineering and refused to be intimidated by anyone who tried to make the math sound like a private club. Eli was the type who could look half asleep in an early lecture and still be the one people turned to when the group project started sinking. He'd chosen cybersecurity, partly because it paid, and partly because he liked systems, things that made sense if you traced the lines long enough. Their friends liked being around them for reasons that were hard for them to put to words. Mara and Eli didn't freeze when the power flickered off. They didn't move into worry mode. They didn't get lost at night, driving or walking. They didn't get flustered when someone got hurt at a party or when the weather turned sharp and people forgot how to move without complaining. When the stress hit, they just had the path forward ready to implement, like it was obvious what needed doing. They carried themselves like the world or the situation could get worse, and they'd already decided what to do about it. It wasn't arrogance, it was a mindset established during their upbringing. Their father, Tom Hensley, had spent 20 years in the Army Reserves as a combat engineer. During that time, he'd deployed in the war and come home with a different kind of quiet in his eyes. Not the movie dramatic version, not haunted silence or outburst of emotions, a practical, alert silence, like a man who had learned what evil people are capable of and didn't waste breath pretending otherwise. His societal innocence was burned away, the thin veneer was worn off. In civilian life, Tom also traveled a lot. His job took him into backwaters and filthy, by our standards, foreign factory towns, places where rules were more like suggestions. Life was viewed as cheaper. Death and tragedy was simply expected. He'd been in parts of Africa, Asia, the Middle East, South and Central America. Not resorts, not conference centers, places where the power went out and stayed out, places where masked men with guns decided whether you made it through a checkpoint. He came back from those trips with the same phrase every time. Most people don't understand how thin it is or how good we have it. How thin what is? Mara would ask when she was younger, chewing the end of a pencil. All of it, Tom would say, the part that keeps the bad from pouring in or even rising to the surface from within, the part that makes a grocery store look normal and safe, the part that makes a siren mean help instead of trouble. Their mother, Claire, was the softer voice in the house, but not the weaker one. She taught Mara and Eli first aid the way other parents taught tying shoes, pressure and elevation, clean water. Don't waste supplies or resources. Don't pretend small injuries aren't serious just because you want them to be. It can all change real fast, and bad things are preventable.
Their weekends were camping trips and outdoor activities, not amusement parks and the lazy comfort of indoors. They learned how to set up shelter fast before rain turned into hypothermia. They learned how to cook on a fire that didn't scream its location to the whole forest. They learned how to move quietly, how to read ground, how to watch a person's hands. Hunting, reading the signs in nature, preserving and cleaning game were a part of life. Their friends noticed. Sometimes it came out like teasing. Eli, why do you walk like you're on patrol? Mara, why do you always know where the exits are? Sometimes it came out from their peers like admiration. Can you show me how you did that knot? How do you stay calm like that and just know what to do next? Eli and Mara would shrug and say it was just camping stuff, just family stuff, but they always caught each other's eyes after, sharing the same private thought. Mom and Dad were intense. Dad was probably overdoing it, but Mom balanced that out. Dad was probably right anyway. That was normal life. The semesters moved forward as expected. The path was normal. There were quizzes and labs and jokes about cafeteria food. There were group texts and study sessions and the kind of tired that came from choosing to work hard instead of being forced to suffer. The world, for a while, stayed predictable, until it didn't. It started with small things that sounded like somebody else's problem. A shipping delay in a different state, a labor strike at a marine terminal, elevators and escalators that stopped working on campus for weeks, then one day finding a sign hung up stating parts for repair unavailable, use stairs. A cyber incident that made one company's payment system go down for a day. News anchors talked about it in the tone they used for weather patterns, like it might ruin your weekend but wouldn't change your life. Then the campus dining hall posted a sign, limited menu due to supply issues.
She read the sign twice. Then she walked to the side door that led to the loading area. She didn't go in, she just watched. Usually there were trucks, usually there was movement, pallets, forklifts, people swearing in the bright way workers did when they were busy. That day, there was nothing. Just empty space and a stray piece of plastic blowing in circles. Eli found her there. "You okay?" he asked. Mara nodded slowly. "Do you remember what Dad said about grocery stores?" Eli's mouth tightened. He didn't like that tone, the one that meant she'd noticed something he hadn't. "Thin," he said. "Yeah," Mara answered. "Thin." Over the next week, the cracks widened. The pharmacy near campus ran out of some things. First cough medicine, then certain antibiotics, then insulin shipments were delayed, and people started lining up early in the morning like it was a new kind of sale. Gas stations had weird gaps, one pump working, the next taped off under repair. The price jumped hard enough that people complained out loud at the register, as if the cashier had personally raised it. Campus security started driving slower at night, not faster. More watching, less chasing. And then, one afternoon, the university's alert system sent a message that didn't sound like it belonged to a school. Shelter in place until further notice. Avoid downtown areas. Limit travel. Wait for instructions. The message didn't have a name. It had a tone. Eli sat down on Mara's dorm room floor and leaned his back against the bed frame. "What's happening?" he asked, and for once, he sounded younger than 19. Mara grabbed her phone and called home. The call didn't go through. She tried again. Still nothing. Then she texted, No delivery confirmation. Eli watched her face change, and he stood up, suddenly full of motion. "Try Mom's phone," he said. Mara did. Nothing. She felt her heartbeat in her throat, and she hated herself for it. Panic wasn't useful. Panic was what Dad called a luxury emotion. "Okay," Mara said, forcing the word out steady. "Okay." Eli nodded like he understood what okay meant in their family. It meant, do the next right thing. Mara pulled her emergency bag from the bottom of her closet. Most people had go bags that were half joke, half apocalypse fantasy. Their friends kept theirs stocked with protein bars and candles and maybe a cute little hatchet they bought online. Mara's wasn't cute. Medical supplies, water purification tablets, a small filter, a radio, batteries, a headlamp, a paper map folded tight, cash, a couple of protein packets, and dense calorie bars they rotated out every month. Eli had his own bag, already packed. He checked his phone again. No service. "Internet?" Eli asked. Mara opened her laptop. The campus Wi-Fi worked, but it felt wrong, slow, like something was choking it. She tried the news. Every site loaded headlines, but not the details. Supply disruptions expand. Government issues temporary measures. City centers report unrest. National Guard activated in multiple states. There were videos, shaky and half-blurred, of crowds pushing against closed grocery store doors, of police lines, of people yelling. Someone in the background screamed something about their baby needing formula. Another clip showed a downtown street with broken windows and smoke. The caption said it was only isolated incidents. Mara watched the clip twice and turned off the laptop. "That's not isolated," she said. Eli swallowed. "Dad told us this could happen." Mara nodded. "He told us how it would feel before it happened." Outside, the dorm hallway was loud. Students were running on adrenaline. Some were laughing, as if everything was a weird holiday. Others were crying on phones that didn't connect. Doors slammed. Voices rose. Mara stepped into the hallway and looked down the line of rooms. Her neighbor, a girl named Tessa, stood in the doorway with her arms wrapped around herself. "What do we do?" Tessa asked, eyes wide. Mara heard herself answer without hesitation. "Get water," she said. "Fill containers now. The taps don't stop first. They stop later. And when they stop, you'll wish you'd filled everything." Tessa blinked. "How do you know that?" Mara almost said, "My dad." Instead, she said, "Just trust me." Tessa nodded and ran. Eli leaned close to Mara and spoke low. "We should leave," he said. Mara looked at him. "We were told to shelter in place." Eli's jaw tightened. "Who told us, and why?" Mara didn't have a good answer. She looked out the window at the campus road. A line of cars was already forming, people trying to get out. Horns, frustration, fear in motion, edges of panic forming. Beyond the campus, the city skyline sat under a haze that could have been heat or smoke. Mara pulled out the paper map and spread it on the floor. Eli crouched beside her. "We're about 1,200 miles from home," she said. Eli traced the interstate with a finger. "Fast route is obvious." "Obvious gets you seen," Mara replied. Eli nodded slowly. "Dad always said the safest road is the one nobody wants." Mara looked at the map and thought about everything she didn't know. Was home safe? Was anyone safe? She took a breath and made herself focus on what she could control. "Can't move today. Not in that traffic. Not in daylight." Eli looked up. "So, night travel?" "Night travel," Mara confirmed. "Edges, back roads, avoid crowds." Eli's expression tightened into something calm and sharp, the face he wore when they were hiking and the weather turned. "What about food?" Eli asked. Mara pointed to the campus dining hall on the map, then to the small grocery store just off campus. "First," she said, "we gather what we can while people still think this is a temporary inconvenience." Eli nodded. "And then? We go home." Mara paused. Home meant Mom. Home meant Dad. Home meant the place that had always felt like a safe point on a terrain map. She pressed her palm against the map as if she could anchor the world with pressure. "Yes," she said, "we go home." That evening, the university sent another alert. "Shelter in place. Do not attempt to leave campus. Authorities will provide guidance." Mara read it and felt a cold certainty settle in her stomach. Authorities were behind. Authorities were always behind. Eli watched her face. "You're thinking of what Dad would say," he guessed. Mara nodded. Eli's voice came out quiet. "He'd say," Eli began, then stopped. Mara finished it for him. "He'd say guidance is what you get when someone wants you to stay where they can find you." Eli exhaled, slow. They sat in the dim light of Mara's dorm room, bags packed, shoes ready, water bottles filled, and listened to the world outside shift from normal noise to something harsher. Somewhere in the distance, sirens didn't stop. Not one, not two. A long, steady chorus, like the city had started screaming and didn't know how to breathe. Mara looked at Eli and saw the same question in his eyes. Not will this pass, but what kind of world comes after? She thought of their father's voice. "Evil resides in every society. It is the good men and women that keep those gates closed." Mara swallowed. If the gates were opening, then the only question that mattered was simple. Would they be the kind of people who held them back, or the kind of people who ran? Eli tightened the straps on his bag. "We leave tonight," he said. Mara nodded once. "Tonight," she agreed. Outside, the lights of campus glowed like nothing had changed, but the air already felt different, thinner.
Subscribe for part 2, releasing soon. We hope you enjoyed the story. There's more to come. Subscribe down below. These stories are written by us, helped by AI, and then we put it all together and bring it to you. Stay tuned for the next story coming your way.